Dude, so I've been a massive fan of Stoic philosophy for a long time. I just think it's really useful in deciding what are quality actions in our lives. And I've also been a big fan of pursuing yogic philosophy. It gives us practices that are spiritual practices we can do on the daily basis, and I find them really useful. What I realized recently, and it super blew my mind, is that the basis of Stoic philosophy and yogic philosophy is the exact same. So let me lay it out here for you. In both cases, I'm gonna lay out what I would call the two fundamental principles of each philosophy, and I'll start with the Stoics. So the first fundamental principle of the Stoics is when considering any action that you might or might not do in your life, and let's refine that thoughts are actions. The first choice that a Stoic has to make is, can you impact the result? And if you can, go ahead and take action. And if you can't, then you have to accept the result regardless. It, as a Christian, almost feels like stepping into God's plan. It's the idea that, like, for example, if I get sick, that's bad. I don't like that. I don't want to be sick. But I can't impact it. I have no power over this sickness. And so I have to accept the fact that I'm sick. And actually, since I can't impact it, I should love the fact that I'm sick because I have no other choice. It's kind of like accepting God's plan. In the Stoic philosophy, they call it amor fati, or loving your fate. The second principle of Stoic philosophy is considering the fact that your reality is not the actual reality that's happening on the outside. It's like the result of the inputs and your experiences, but it's not actually what's happening out there. Like, they could be perfectly aligned, but they oftentimes are a little bit different. And as a result, in Stoic philosophy, we learn to be critical of our emotions and our initial responses to the outside world. And this is kind of what gives the Stoics the bad rap of being like stoic, like unemotional. But this isn't really the case with Stoics. If you read Epictetus, he is super excited and enamored with life. He loves every day and lives at large. But he also is critical of his emotions. He knows that emotions are just responses to whatever's going on in the world, and they can be good or bad. So the two foundational considerations, or the basis of Stoic philosophy, is consider whether you can actually impact the result with any given action or thought or anything you're doing, and respond to the reality of whether you can impact it or not. And then kind of be critical of your emotions and responses, and just realize that your own perception of the world is not the actual world necessarily. And so we have to respond accordingly and know that we're taking action not just in initial response, but in some sort of actual calculated analytical way. So the basis of yogic philosophy takes these two principles from Stoic philosophy and it just kind of flips them as a foundation or basis. So the first principle in yogic philosophy is that the world we see is not the actual world. However, the world we see is a world that's constructed from our past experiences and our past thoughts and the past patterns that we built within our minds. As a result, that gives us a lot of power because we can make choices and take actions that change those patterns of thought and construct a different world for ourselves. So in yoga, the natural reaction of the fact that the world outside and the world I see are not the same thing is that I don't have agency over the world outside, but I do have agency over my patterns of thought and my habits, and not the experiences I've had, but the responses to those experiences are wholly within my control. And so in order to create for myself a better world in terms of the world I experience when I go out into the real world, I can step in and be the gardener of my own mind, is one way we put it, that I really love. It's like through these meditative practices, I learn to go into my mind and either plant the thoughts and habits that I want to have or remove the thoughts and habits that are not helpful to me. And this leads directly into that second principle I was talking about, which is the fact that in yoga, we believe we can't impact the rest of the world outside of us. We can only impact the world internal to us, our perceptions of the world that construct our world for us. So since we can only control our world that's inside of us, we go ahead and do that. So in Stoic philosophy, the first principle is that we should only take action with the things that we can actually impact, and if we can't impact something, we just accept it. And in the yogic philosophy, it's the fact that the world outside is not the same world as the one you experience, and as a result of that, we should only take action in the things we can impact, which is our internal world, the construction of the way that we see the world. This to me felt so holistic when I realized that the basis of these two philosophies really comes together so well, because it just feels to me like they're all about the search for truth. And I think they all end with the truth of the Creator, or God's truth. As a Christian, I believe these are all circling around themes that simply lead to godliness. So finally, I would just say, since these philosophies are so similar, and since I am so convinced that God is good and directly involved with this world, any way that you seek the divine, you're going to find Him. Jesus tells us in Matthew 7:7 that those who seek, find. Those who knock at the door, it will be opened. So go ahead and seek. However it feels holistic to you to seek the divine and you will find truth. If this was interesting, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like button. And if you'd like to try out a meditative practice, I've got one coming up here. This is the Stoic Yogi, out.